Hello, Darja. Nice to see your essays again. Let's have a look at the Olympics essay first. Experts throughout the developed and developing world have debated if the Olympics are still necessary in the 21st century. Okay, great. You could also say whether, which would increase the complexity of your grammar slightly. Well, some people believe it is important in order to strengthen a nation. Personally, I strongly disagree. Okay, you mean you disagree with the fact that its main function is to strengthen a nation? And, I would ask you, what do you mean by strengthening a nation? Because the word strengthen here sounds a bit ambiguous. This essay will illustrate this position using examples from the Olympic events in Germany and Brazil a few years ago. Quite nice, quite nice. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that sports competitions like the Olympics can support the national identity and at the same time break boundaries between certain countries. The central reason for that is the promotion of peace, national and international unity within the community through the medium of sports. Very nice vocabulary. Okay. For example, in Germany, the Olympics event led to an official demonstration of national pride, including flags and hymns. Okay. By hymns, do you mean hymn as a religious hymn or as the anthem? If you refer to the national anthem, the official melody that represents a country, then you really have to say anthem. But I'm not sure what you mean. It must not be forgotten that the country still has to fight against stigma and prejudice due to National Socialism, and therefore most of the population. It must not be forgotten that perhaps you need a time reference. For example, at present or at that time, I don't know what time you refer to. And what was the Olympics held in Germany? I can't recall. So perhaps you could place a year. For example, in Germany, the Olympics event and you name the year, led to an official demonstration and so on. Okay. And therefore, most of the population is rather reserved regarding the presentation of pride in everyday life, of national pride, probably. National pride. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that the Olympics can dissolve that stigma, and support the national identity. Okay, I wouldn't say support. I would say build on national identity. Build on the national identity. This is a great argument. I really love the example. But look at this. You present two arguments. The Olympics can support the national identity, argument one, and break boundaries between certain countries, argument two, right? You mentioned them in your first sentence. This means this is your topic sentence, which says, dear reader, I'm going to tell you about this. However, what you do is you develop and conclude only on argument one, whereas argument two, you haven't explained how it breaks boundaries between certain belligerent, or let's say countries that are at war, like the division between North and South Korea. So let me repeat this. You really need to take care of the second argument. If you don't, you are not answering the question that you yourself promised to do. Okay, I hope it makes sense. On the other hand, although there is a case for national pride in reaching a whole country, I think you are kind of repeating national pride too often. Perhaps you could replace the word pride by a synonymous concept. The impact on the economics, the impact of what? Of Olympic Games on the economics cannot be underestimated. Okay, economics is the science. Economy is the everything about the economic things in a country, on the economy of the host country, right? Cannot be underestimated. This is largely because of the huge costs and investments following this event. For example, in Rio de Janeiro, the government had invested a lot of money, I would say I would use something more sophisticated. Let's say a tremendous amount of money into the restoration of new streets. Wait a second. Restoration means that something old is rebuilt. You cannot say restoration of new streets. You can say into developing new streets, right? Into the restoration of streets, transportation system security, and a proper stadium. Just one or several, I'm not sure. Consistent with this line of thinking is that a poor country like Brazil, oh, be very careful with the word poor. If I were a Brazilian, I would consider this offensive. I would say a developing country like Brazil should rather spend their money on their own residents, including educational purposes. Residents or residents' needs, including educational purposes. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that the Olympics should not be not performed, but organized in a developing country struggling more, which is struggling with more important issues. I wouldn't put it in the form of should not be organized. I would say it in a softer way. Perhaps it is possible to say beyond doubt that organizing the Olympic Games in developing country would be, let me think about developing. Like think of a synonym for developing. Less well off, let's say. Um, um, so organizing the Olympics in a developing country is not would not be um, accepted or would not be received by the nationals of this country as warmly as it might be thought of, because this country is already struggling with more important issues that require the funding spent on the games. So should not be performed sounds like don't ever do this. Well, countries in the course of development have hosted Olympics, and very often it helped them to improve economically. But well, it's complicated, I know. Anyway, you have great body paragraphs, except this part, right? You're going to fix this, I know. Now let's see the conclusion. In conclusion, from the arguments and examples given, I wouldn't say from the arguments, because look, you go one with I firmly believe. You cannot say I believe from the arguments. How about saying based on the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that the Olympics have a historical, political and national value. Nevertheless, it is more important to spend the money on development. On what development? On what kind of development, or on development of what, rather than on sports events in the future. Okay. Perhaps you haven't spoken about the historical event, historical value. Perhaps you could speak about the national value, because the political value resides in this argument, right, which you haven't developed, so I cannot judge. So you should summarize this argument and this counter argument. Okay, so yes, you do summarize the two main events. The two main ideas from your body paragraphs very efficiently, I must say. So you have a great style. I like that. You have good coherence. It's very easy to read you. I mean, with all the little corrections that I made, it's very easy to read you. So your coherence is quite fine. Well, apart from this, right? Okay, anyway, task achievement will suffer a bit because you haven't developed this properly. You really have to make sure that you don't mention anything you haven't developed in the conclusion. I mean, don't summarize on something in the conclusion if you haven't discussed it in the body paragraphs. It makes no sense. Your coherence and cohesion are at a very nice level. Your vocabulary and grammar are good in terms of range, but still need a bit of work in terms of accuracy, because I can see that you can use complex forms and complex vocabulary, but sometimes it is slightly inaccurate, as you can see in my corrections. Now let's have a look at the shoe sales. And please, in the future, when you send me something For the when you send me answers for task one, please make sure that you include the visual as well, because it's difficult for me to keep track. But I guess I know the bar chart, the shoe sales chart by heart, I guess. So it should work. But in the future, please include the picture. Just copy paste it in the document. The bar chart shows the distribution of sales of two different types of shoes in some European countries in 2018. Okay, you say some European countries, but perhaps you could say in 9 European countries. That would be more precise, and it will avoid the ambiguity of some. Some. It's like, I don't care which. I mean, I know you don't mean this, but it's kind of what your text means. As it can be seen from the bar chart, 5 out of 9 countries from blah, 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 preferred brown leather shoes. Nice. The highest amount of this type of shoes, of this type of footwear, right? Because we know the rule, do not repeat yourself. And we will have the word shoes everywhere here. Has been sold in Poland. No, not present perfect. Past simple. Why? Because you're not speaking about the result right now. That happened in 2018. It's 2019 right now. This is not something connected with the result in this present. So past simple as that. With nearly 130,000, followed by Germany with exemplars. An exemplar in English means a sample. For example, you don't know how to write the task one essay for bar charts. Task one answer for bar charts. So I can send you an exemplar. So like a sample that you should follow. You can say pairs perfectly. Pairs. I don't think you use pairs. With 10,000 brown leather shoes, Belgium had the smallest number of sales. Okay, beautiful, but I would say lowest or the least. Okay, because lowest, because smallest sounds kind of simple. In Hungary, Italy, Belgium, and the UK, most of the shoes sold were made out of black leather with this, and that sales respectively. Okay. The number of black leather shoes, I would say that clients purchased, right? I'm trying to do a trick here without saying, I want to avoid saying sold, but so I'm going to say who bought. Black leather, the number of black leather shoes, beg your pardon, that clients purchased in Hungary was almost 5 times that of France. Beautiful vocabulary. I wouldn't even put this. No. Whereas Belgium sold 10,000 brown leather shoes, 10,000 pairs of brown leather shoes. The amount of black ones reached 100 times of that. 100 times of that. Okay, overall, it can be seen that although the preferences of each country differed, the amount of sold shoes had been broadly equal with regard to the to the leather type. I wouldn't nearly. Not nearly 8. I'm not sure what you mean by this last thing. So is this the difference? Because you see, I don't see the chart. I cannot check. I'm not sure what you mean by this. But if you write respectively, do you mind doing this? And if you had an open parenthesis here, but you didn't close it here, so don't even open it if you don't intend to close it. But better don't use parentheses, because there are very few cases when you should be using parentheses in IELTS essays. Anyway, I am impressed by the quality of your language. I mean, the things that I corrected are kind of minor, but you have a beautiful range of structures for reporting data. You have amazingly appropriate highlights of the most important facts. I would say the only problem is this line of values, like 4 numbers. I mean, it looks excessive. All the rest I really like. So, great job. Keep up the great work, and I will be looking forward to more of your essays.